I don't know what happened, but there was a glitch when I was doing my video stream just now, and I'm sorry about that. But anyway, I hope that this particular session goes through without any problems. So, with no further ado, I'm going to get started right now. And I want to discuss ABC's roundtable, with ABC's this week's roundtable with former Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey and Donna Brazell and some of the others. I don't care. I don't think it was like one or two other people. But anyway, we know who Chris Christie is. He's the former governor of New Jersey, the former Republican governor of New Jersey. On one hand, he's kind of seen as a moderate Republican. On the other hand, he's kind of a douchebag, pretending to be a nice guy. And then there's Donna Brazil, who was a Democratic Party operative that worked in the Gore Lieberman campaign. She's one of those Democrats that blame Ralph Nader for George W. Bush becoming president, and then later on became buddies with George W. Bush due to Trump derangement syndrome, and still hates Ralph Nader. So and I despise those kind of false liberals like that. The ones who shit on the left for getting your generic Republican elected, and then because they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome so fucking bad that they become friends with the mediocre Republican politician, because they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome while still shitting on the left. That's what we have to deal with in the United States. So, as far as one of the pundits and media figures out there, I really do despise Donna Brazell, with her hand in what she did in 2016, rigging against Bernie Sanders. She played a hand at that too, by the way. But anyway, Chris Christie made claims on this week's roundtable on ABC that Biden is, politically speaking, dead and buried. Um, and basically, what he's implying is that Joe Biden campaigned as a centrist in the primaries and in the general election, but became a hostage or bend the knee to the Democratic Party's left wing. And while Bernie Sanders, AOC, and Elizabeth Warren are problematic in my view today, I'm not against them, but I am very, very disappointed with these three. And these three people I used to admire with a great deal of diligence. Let's just say, for instance, just to play devil's advocate for a moment, that Chris Christie is right, that scary Bernie Sanders, scary Elizabeth Warren, and scary AOC are so far to the left and they're so unhinged that Joe Biden is actually incorporating their radical socialist agenda. My response to that is, I fucking wish that was the case. But if anything, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and AOC bend the knee to the Joe Biden wing of the Democratic Party. He's got it wrong. He's got it backwards. And that is the case. And anybody who says otherwise, they're full of shit. But anyway, he went on further to say that why should we be surprised? He couldn't stand up to the Taliban. How do you expect him to stand up to AOC? Now, that's what irritates me. He's acting like leaving Afghanistan was wrong. 20 years, $300 million a day, and making the world less safe. Let's see, what else? It, you know, Making the world less safe, fueling religious fundamentalism. And you act like that was a rip roaring success. Hold tight. I needed to do this real quick. He acted like that was a rip roaring success. Well, you know, Howdy doody. I forgot to put his mug up there. Hold tight. And I am not going to go rebroadcast this. Here we go. He's going to act like that it was correct to remain in Afghanistan all these years, and that Joe Biden was completely wrong. Let me say this to all the people who still loves that kind of crap from the Bush years, that Obama and Trump continue. And I tell you, I was surprised that Joe Biden did the right thing, and he did. If I'm ever going to say anything nice about the Joe Biden presidency, is that he did pull the troops out of Afghanistan. So to hold on, and to Christie, let me tell you how I feel about you getting mad and crying about Joe Biden pulling our troops out of Afghanistan. Fuck you, Governor Christie. You heard it. Me. Fuck you, Christie. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, motherfucker. Fuck you and your warmongering ways. Fuck you bloodthirsty piece of shit neocon fuckface. Back to Christie in a calmer light. I mean, let's get the record straight about the Taliban situation. You see, Christie is a neoconservative. Christie believes in invading other countries, and that is just the thing to do, is to go and invade other countries. If he had it his way, and if he had it his way, if he would have been president 2016 instead of Donald Trump, we would have actually had a worse foreign policy. It would have definitely been a throwback to the George W. Bush presidency on steroids. Fuck you, Christie. And let me tell you something about the so-called extreme politics of the progressives. And I don't really like to use the term progressive because it's a meaningless term these days. We're going to say generically, broadly speaking, the left. There is nothing extreme about Medicare for all. I mean, what is extreme is the shit we have for healthcare in this country right now, run by private health insurance companies, run by big pharma. That's extreme. What is not extreme is what other industrial, dare I say, capitalist democracies do that we should be doing, and that is to provide universal health care, free or relatively free to all Americans, as Canadians deliver, the Canadian government deliver free health care to the entire population of Canada, or Great Britain delivering healthcare to the entire population of the UK, or and if that is too Western centric for some, what Taiwan does for their citizens, or what Japan does for their citizens, providing relatively free medical care for the entire population. And things like free college. It's a no-brainer. We need free college. We need these things like the Green New Deal. We have climate change catastrophe waiting to happen. I mean, and anybody who thinks, oh, there's no such thing as global warming, it's climate change, it's all a hoax. You don't have eyes for yourself to see just what the weather is like and how it radically changed over the years. I don't know what to say. Saying that there's no climate change, it's like saying that there are weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein still have hidden in the desert of Iraq. I mean, that's what the equivalent would be. Now, let's talk about that Taliban for a second. That Joe Biden supposedly not standing up to the Taliban. I remember when Ronald Reagan, back in the 1980s, had these people in the White House and compared them to the founding fathers of this country. Why? Because when the United States was on friendly terms with these rebels in Afghanistan, these right-wing Muslim rebels in Afghanistan, remember who they were fighting against. Those godless Soviet communists. and that's basically what it was. It was that. And the thing about it is that, yeah, you know, I mean, Reagan made a fucking mistake by siding with these people to topple to try to topple the Soviet controlled government or Soviet influenced government in Afghanistan. And I said this once before, and I'll say it again. I am not one bit of a Marxist Leninist. I never embrace any Marxist Leninism. I'm not a communist, and there's that. Never embraced Stalinism, never embraced Trotskyism, never embraced Maoism. Never, I mean, not even the more benign Castro philosophy I've ever embraced. And the closest thing I might embrace toward communism might have been the government of Field Marshal Joseph Broz Tito of Yugoslavia, who, if I had to go with a communist model, that would have been the model I would follow. But I'm not one of those. Well, I used to be, but I'm not one of those knee jerk, anti-communist, Cold War liberal types or anything like that. I don't hide under my bed because communism. But here's the thing: some things are worse than quote unquote communism, and radical fundamentalism that's practiced by the Taliban is much more toxic than the Soviet style communism ever could be. Give me communism any day over a religious fundamentalist state like Afghanistan under the Taliban. And it would have been better for the Soviets to remain in control of Afghanistan and not and it would have just been better if the Taliban would have never taken over. There would have never been a 9/11. There would have never been an invasion of Iraq. So and there would never have been a lot of these things that's going on, like people in the United States begging to make airstrikes against the Iranian government. Again, no fan of the Iranian government. But again, I don't, just because I might not like a certain government doesn't mean I want to go and invade them. Okay? The best way to defeat governments you do not like is through peace, diplomacy, and minding our own damn business. Something that Christie can't get through his noggin right now. And the thing about it is, the irony is, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm soft on Trump, but you know what? Donald Trump's foreign policy overall was not the foreign policy desires of Christie. Now, Donald Trump was still a terrible president, even on the foreign policy front. But having that said, he wasn't as much of a hawk as someone like Christie would have been. Christie would have been worse on foreign policy than Donald Trump. Marco Rubio would have been much worse on foreign policy than Donald Trump. Definitely Ted Cruz would have been worse on foreign policy than Donald Trump. And I can almost argue that Hillary Clinton, at least on foreign policy, might have been worse than Donald Trump, although she would have been marginally better on all the other issues than Donald Trump, especially Supreme Court appointees, that sort of thing. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to have that cleared. But let me also talk about this claim by Christie about Joe Biden being under the control, the influence of Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, the squad, the left. That's horseshit. That is absolute horseshit. My problem with the Democratic Party now and for the past, since the early 1990s, has been that the Democratic Party has become America's second conservative party. You see, now, when it comes to my critique of the two-party system, I am not going to hate an individual because they vote Republican or vote Democrat or vote Libertarian or vote Green. I have friends from across the political spectrum. I have friends, I have family, I have loved ones, I have people I go to church with that do not share my politics, and that is fine. That is absolutely fine. But the point is that I do have friends, family, and loved ones, and people I go to church with that also shares my politics. In other words, I have friends from across the spectrum in every avenue of my life, and I am not going to sit there and chastise somebody for having different political opinions from me unless they're because that would be punching down. I don't like to punch down. I punch up, and I punch up at asshole politicians who are elected that are not serving the needs of the American people or people in general. So, the fact that the Republican Party is absolute shit as a political entity. There's no reason to ever vote for Republican from my perspective. There's nothing for me in voting Republican. The Republican Party is anti-union, so are the Democrats in many ways. But the Republicans, it's their jam. It's they wear that shit up their sleeve. And if the Republicans had their way, there would be a nationwide right to work law. They don't want government public sector workers to be unionized. They don't want the private sector to be unionized. And Republican policies are largely why 6% of the private sector belongs to a labor union, and the rest of this country are kind of in dire straits right now. The decline of the union meant the decline of the middle class. So just on that issue alone, fuck the Republican Party. But I mean, I also dislike the Republican Party for the Southern strategy that they adopted in the 60s and 70s that took Jim Crow Democrats into the Republican Party. And there are people that don't believe that, but Jesse Helms, I rest my case. But anyway, there, the Republican Party being, you know, under the control of the religious right. Now, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with being a person of faith or what have you. But the Republican Party makes a litmus test. They make a litmus test on how born again you are, and how much you're going to go take away the rights of women and take away the rights of the LGBTQ. And I'm not playing identity politics, but that is just the case. And then and their social conservatism is not for me. And the fact that the Republican Party, they pretend America first, America first, America first, but they have a neoconservative foreign policy. They are just hot and bothered and ready to masturbate over attacking Iran. That is on their mindset right now. And that is what they want to do right now. That is the one thing foreign policy that Republicans want to do right now. They want to go and do a full scale invasion of Iraq. So, fuck the Republican Party. Now, having that said, I'm not letting the Democrats slide by. For all you Republicans out there getting mad at me, I don't have very nice words to say about the Democratic Party either, because the Democratic Party, I saw the Democratic Party um, evolved in the 1980s from a lukewarm New Deal, lukewarm Great Society party, and adopted the Reagan Revolution. It was called the Democratic Leadership Council, and the Democratic Leadership Council basically Reaganized the Democratic Party. In the same way that New Labour in Great Britain Thatcherized the Labour Party. The positive thing is that they got rid of Tony Blair's third way nonsense in the UK. And while the Labour Party is not as far left as they used to be, they're a much better entity now than the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party is still under the influence of Bill and Hillary Clinton and all the other conservative Democrats that turned the party into a sewage. So that's my problem with the Democratic Party. Now, the thing about it is, now Joe Biden and Chris Christie on ideology and policies have much more in common with each other than Bernie Sanders, for example. Now, do I think that what do I if I was inside Joe Biden's dementia ridden mind right now and prior to his dementia, what would his opinion of Bernie Sanders and Chris Christie be on a personal level? Well, knowing what I know about Joe Biden when he had his faculties together, as much as I found policies wrong with him, apparently he was a likable person from both sides of the aisles. So much so that people like Jesse Helms got along with Joe Biden in the Senate. And Jesse Helms was one of the worst people you could ever imagine from my perspective in the US Senate's history in recent decades. He was also very friendly with Bernie Sanders, who was, in my opinion, and relatively still is, one of the best examples of what a U.S. Senator is supposed to be. I got my criticisms of Bernie Sanders, but he's still the best of what we got right now. But the thing about it is, when it comes down to policy, I can guarantee you, Joe Biden, whether he has his faculties together the way it was years ago, or his dementia ridden state of mind right now, have more in common with Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey than he does with Bernie Sanders. It is what it is. And it's not over the top. It's the damn truth. Now, for some people wondering, he may not be wondering, but why do I have a photo of Chris Christie dressed up as Sergeant Schultz from Hogan's Heroes? There's a couple of reasons for that. One, there is a surface mean reason. I mean, I'm obviously making fun of how heavy set he is. The character Sergeant Schultz was heavy set also on Hogan's Heroes. Um, yeah, you call it fat shaming. I have been fat and skinny. I'm kind of on the fat side right now. So anybody who wants to make some fat jokes, I heard them all. Okay. I'm working on it. But anyway, also the ideology. Now I'm not saying that Chris Christie is alt right or neo-Nazi or what have you. In fact, I do not believe that Chris Christie is a racist person at all. Not one bit. I think that Chris Christie's probably, when it comes to people, I don't think he's racist. I do not think he's homophobic. I don't think he's any of these things. I don't know the man. I just think he's a relatively moderate Northeastern Republican whose policies are too far right for me. But the thing I want to make this about Sergeant Schultz from Hogan's Heroes is this little caveat. I was watching an episode of Hogan's Heroes years ago, and apparently prior to the war, the fictitious character of Sergeant Schultz was that he was a social democrat. And what I mean by that is that he didn't like Hitler. The character Sergeant Schultz, he was a relatively nice man in Germany. He served in the army, but he didn't have any use for Hitler and all of that. So he was regular army, and he was always looking the other way when Colonel Hogan, and the other prisoners of war in the camps were doing their little underground routine and everything. And that's why he kept on saying, "I know nothing, I hear nothing, I see nothing." And Corporal Lobo, the French chef prisoner of war, would bribe Sergeant Schultz with his French gourmet cuisines and things like that, his French cooking. And that was the way he would go and bribe Sergeant Schultz to look the other way. And so that's, it. And some people may think, my God, who's Sergeant Schultz? What's Hogan's Heroes? I mean, this is before, I know it's going to be before many people's times. It's before my time too, but it is what it is. I still remember its reruns in the 1970s and 80s. And if it's on TV, I have nothing to do. I'll watch this as background noise occasionally. So anyway, and it was just an opportunity to give you a little bit of TV trivia. If you like what you heard, press like and comment. If you disagree, well, comment anyway. We'll have a conversation. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it because we are the muckrakers of our time. Also, go ahead, by all means, subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you're kept up to date with hard hitting commentary by yours truly. I am American Social Democracy. Um, Peace, class struggle now more than ever.